of seven.
On this best of seven series for
of a best of seven series.
Welcome to the Best of Seven podcast.
Welcome to the Best of Seven podcast. I am your host, Brandon Plant from SENS. In episode number 11, we are joined here by YouTube legend, UrinatingTree. Mr. Tree, how are you doing today?
Not too bad, man. To be honest, trying to survive.
Tough. Coronavirus and, of course, some really saddening news that happened this week. And I think that's a good segue. This week, the United States of America and the world itself has been finally given the wake-up call that's been needed. George Floyd, for no reason, was murdered in broad daylight by an officer overreaching with power. He was begging for his life. He said he couldn't breathe, and the officer kept his knee down on this man's neck. And this is not a political issue. Many people told me to not get into political issues on the podcast, but this is not a political issue. This is a people issue, all right? And enough is enough. It's time for change. We need to wake up, and this stuff cannot be happening anymore. It's 2020. Why are minorities, a black person, why is he getting killed on the street for no reason? It's not right. Things need to change, and things need to change now. And you know what? The images, it's just disgusting. And I think people that are not talking about this, that's the issue. We need to talk about it, and we need change now, because you know what? I can't believe this stuff is still happening. It's sickening, and I don't know how we're going to change it, but we need change, and we need it now, because we're all people. We're all one people. We're all citizens of America. We're all citizens of Canada, and people shouldn't be treated differently because of the color of their skin or any other reason. It's just wrong. What do you guys think?
There's not much else you can really say. I mean, it's heinous all around, I feel like. I mean, as you said, it's a blatant overreach of power. It's just saddening, because now it's just thousands of more lives are ruined. It's none of this is really honoring George Floyd, the man who died.
The peaceful protests are, of course. But.
Yeah, I mean, peaceful protests, that's fine. The problem is when you get into looting, ransacking, destroying places, businesses, that crosses a line.
Yeah.
And nobody should be applauding that.
No. I think that it's sad that in a time where we should all be uniting as a people and uniting as a nation, that we're getting more and more divided, and we really need to focus back on what the point of all of this was, is that a black man was killed for no reason there were 4 cops there. There was one guy, he said he couldn't breathe, and the cop, it's like he wasn't even caring.
He didn't care.
And so that's really what the problem is, and this is what people of color have been experiencing for hundreds of years now. So we really got to get our crap together.
And I think what's important to mention is, on top of just the discrimination and racism that people of color have faced throughout the years, the real protesters, for the most part, aren't rioting. I'm not going to get into the politics of it, because that's a whole other issue. But these are not the people that are protesting in favor for black rights, in favor for justice for George Floyd. There's 2 separate people here. We saw videos last night of these peaceful protesters for Black Lives Matter and everything, telling these people not to loot. So I just want to make that clear, that the looting is not, in my opinion, is not based off of the real George Floyd protesters. We've seen these people protesting peacefully, and these protests have been hijacked by people that are just trying to create chaos. But I support the peaceful protests. We need change, and we need change now. And George Floyd should be with us today. And because of racism, he's not. So I think this is an issue that's really dividing, but it shouldn't be, because we all should get behind the fact that racism is bad and things need to change, because this is not acceptable.
100%. And this has been an issue that's been discussed really recently in the NHL, where you have Akeem Aliu, who came out about his whole story about his time with Bill Peters, former head coach. And, it's just heartbreaking at this point.
It's honestly, just, it's like, come on, like, enough. We're one people. We're all Americans. We're all Canadians. We're one. We should unite. And the fact that this racism, there's a person of color being murdered in broad daylight in the streets in America, it just tells you where we're at now and how far we need to go to get things better. But I think we're just going to spin in circles. We need to get change, and we need to get change now. Obviously, condolences to George Floyd and his family. What happened is disgusting, should never have happened, and hopefully justice will be done and justice will be given to George Floyd, his memory, and the family, because what happened is disgusting and the wrong needs to be righted. Moving on now from a tough subject to another tough issue, but not as tough, obviously. Gary Bettman announced the return to play format for the National Hockey League. Now, before we get into the details, Tree, what was your initial reaction to that news?
Of the NHL, I was more surprised it was coming back because I remember, like, in mid-March, I was already resigned to the fact that it wasn't coming back.
Yeah. Like, I fully thought that the league was not going to come back. I thought hockey was done. I thought sports was done. But then the last week or two, besides baseball.
Yeah, I figured baseball would be the one to come back.
But I'm shocked because the owners
it doesn't look like that might be happening.
Yeah, honestly, the owners have been greedy and in baseball, and I don't think baseball's going to come back. But hockey, if things go right, looks like to come back. Here's the proposal from the National Hockey League. Firstly, the 2019-20 regular season is done. It's over. SENS season is done. So we all expected that. It's done. So we got 24 teams in two hub cities. So they'll split the conferences between the two. So each hub city will have one conference. So let's say Toronto will have the Eastern Conference, and Los Angeles, as an example, will have the Western Conference. So these 24 teams will compete in seeding round robins, a qualifying round, and conference-based Stanley Cup playoff matches. So the two hub cities that will be selected among are the following options would be Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Edmonton, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Minneapolis, St. Paul, which may not happen now.
Yeah,
I don't know now. Pittsburgh, Toronto, and Vancouver. And before we get into like talking about the series, I'm just gonna, like I said in episode 10, I'd give a full breakdown of the round robin and just the whole format. So I'm gonna break it down now. So firstly, the round robin, the top 4 teams per conference play for first round seeding, which is regular regular season OT rules. So there'll be a shootout after a 5-minute 3-on-3 overtime. So essentially, it's just preseason to get them back into game shape. And the qualifying round, which is essentially the playoffs. It's essentially the playoffs, which is what pissed me off with the draft lottery, which we'll get to in a minute. But the remaining 8 teams will play a best of each conference, will play a best of 5 series. Playoff OT rules apply, which makes it once again essentially playoffs. This determines who advances to round 1 of the regular Stanley Cup playoffs. So the qualifying round is all 24 teams, well, all 18 teams that are playing, or 16 teams that are playing, and the top 4 teams from each conference are out. So this is going to help decide who plays who in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now we don't know yet whether or not there's going to be, reseeding, or if it's going to be a bracket. That's still up in the air. So we'll see about that. But really, what it comes down to is 8 teams do not have to participate in the play-in qualifying round. 4 from the East: Boston, Tampa, Washington, Philadelphia. Those are the 4 Eastern Conference teams that don't have to play in the qualifying round. And in the West, it is St. Louis, Colorado, Vegas, and Dallas. So the matchups, and then we're going to talk about each one. So first, let's get into the first matchup, Toronto versus Columbus. What do you think about that one, guys?
That's a tough one because I think Columbus caught everyone by surprise. Everyone thought Columbus would be down at the bottom because they lost so many pieces. They lost Bobrovsky, Panarin, Duchesne. Those were the top 3 free agents of the whole free agency class. And I'm thinking I'm going to give the series to Toronto, in my opinion, just because they have too much talent for me to deny them. And I as much as I would want Columbus to win, I got to be realistic. And for me, that's giving it to Toronto.
Well, number 8, Toronto, and number 9, Columbus. By the way, those are the rankings for them. Tree and I, before the podcast, we began filming, we discussed this, and we said Columbus could be scary because all the injuries that they had, they were doing well without all those players, and now those players are coming back. So I think Toronto probably has the upper hand, but don't be shocked if Columbus pulls up an upset. What do you think, Trey?
I'd say the same thing. Toronto has a talent advantage, obviously. Look at the forward core they have. As mentioned, Columbus is getting healthy. And if Elvis Merzlikins, I think they may have the advantage in net and on defense. Forward-wise, Toronto has the edge.
Of course.
So this is probably going to go a 5-game series, but I want to lean Toronto here just because.
I think that the difference between the two teams is I think when both teams are fully healthy, I think Toronto has a really big advantage. But I know for, let's say, if Columbus, like they've shown in the regular season, if an important position like their goaltending gets injured, they have Merzlikins, they have Korpisalo, and they have both of those guys for the next couple of years. So it shows that even if they start Merzlikins gets hurt, well, there's Korpisalo right there. He played almost honestly, he probably played like he was going to get maybe 5th or 6th in Vezina voting. He was phenomenal this year. And it's great that the Maple Leafs have Frederik Andersen, but past that, Jack Campbell, you're going to rely on Jack Campbell, who has been playing on a mediocre Los Angeles Kings team? I wouldn't.
I completely agree. I think Merzlikins has been fantastic, but like you said, the 1-2 punch there in the goaltending for Columbus might give them upper hand because, once again, we all agree, goaltending wins you championships. That's the way it is in the NHL.
Right.
You get a hot goalie, you're going to win games, just like the Hamburger run, or, the guy won insane, and we won 23 or like 25 or 6. The next matchup in the East, a little Yinzer here, Pittsburgh native UrinatingTree. This one should intrigue him and kind of pisses me off. Number 5 Pittsburgh versus number 12 Montreal. And what bothers me about this is the fact that Pittsburgh, and I want to hear what you think, Tree, because Pittsburgh has a shot at playing playoff games essentially with the qualifying round, but they also have a shot at losing in this and then getting a chance at winning the first overall selection. So, Tree, I'm going to shoot it to you first, considering this is your team. What do you think of that matchup?
You have to consider, too, that the Pens' first-round pick is technically property of Minnesota. It may be lottery protected. So if they end up winning the lottery, I think they keep it.
Probably, yeah. Why not?
Yeah, but my personal opinion, Montreal does not deserve to be here.
No.
This is a team that got swept by Detroit. No. I think Shea Weber's still injured. Max Domi may not be playing because he's diabetic. I found that out a couple days ago. So they're dealing with extremely limited supply line, and they're going to have to rely on a Carey Price who's been very unstable this year. The Penguins, on the other hand, I mean, I'm not going to bitch about them being in like this play-in round because they were playing like shit in February and March.
Yeah.
And that's why they're in this situation.
Honestly, I think when it comes down to it is this is the matchup that a lot of people are looking at as a potential upset because Pittsburgh, like you said, were really inconsistent. Matt Murray wasn't consistent. Tristan Jarry had his moments. Casey DeSmith was okay, but Pittsburgh went on and off. But when you got Malkin and Crosby, I think Pittsburgh wins the series without a doubt. But I don't really see why people think Montreal can win here. I think Pittsburgh is just overall just completely the better team. That's just my opinion. Like
I agree with that. And if we just go back for just a second, I'm going to give Toronto 3-1 over Columbus. In this one, I just say it's a sweep for Pittsburgh. I just don't. I don't see it out of Montreal. They're really not a playoff team. Like they should be competing for the draft lottery, not for the playoffs.
Well, speaking of teams that should be competing for the draft lottery, a team that I thought was going to compete for the draft lottery anyways was the Florida Panthers and the New York Islanders. Florida at a time, I really thought they were not doing well. Bobrovsky had a below 900 save percentage. I thought Florida might be in the draft lottery, and they kind of got lucky here, slipping in into this playoff format. Number 7 New York Islanders versus number 10 Florida. This matchup is interesting because it's two great coaches, Barry Trotz versus Joe Quenneville. You got, of course, a great forward core in Florida, and in New York, you just have a great team build. So this one, I don't know. I could see it going either way. I probably give the upper hand probably to New York just because they play in a system sort of like, I'm not comparing it to the 131 with Guy Boucher, but they all know how to play. So if you base it off of how long they've been out of action, they know the system. So they are going to play the system, and they're going to play it well. Unlike Florida, where they might be disorganized and they're going to rely more on scoring abilities, and those scoring abilities might be rusty. So that's just my opinion. I think the Islanders probably win this one.
I think you have to remember, too, about this series, it's a grudge match from a couple of years ago.
Yes. Florida
still remembers Vinny Trocheck being tripped in front of the net.
I yelled. I was like,
called.
Yeah.
And then Tavares runs the other way, ties it, and it would have been a 7th game.
Yeah.
So Florida has talent. I love their core.
I do
But the
too.
problem is it's in net. Like Momtembo's been all right, but Bobrovsky has been a dud. And he's been very disappointing to me this year.
He's been, when you're paying $10 million for a goaltender, you need.
Like you expect him to, win games, and carry you, and not have to be a passenger.
When Chris, no.
I will say about Bobrovsky, though, since the All-Star break, he has been a lot better than he was before the All-Star break. I don't know what it really is, but he's looking a little bit more like that $11 million man or whatever. He definitely at the beginning of the season, he might have been atrocious, but I don't know. I'm not sleeping on Florida.
That's what they need. I'm not sleeping on them either. I mean, Bobrovsky is literally the only piece keeping him away from being a cup contender.
Yeah. I think it's 50-50. Like, I think the Islanders probably win just based off system and the break. That's what I'm basing everything off of. But at the same time, with Florida, Sergei Bobrovsky, with all the time off that he's had, that can go in favor of Florida because maybe he got his mind right and maybe now he can go back to being the top goalie. Maybe he was a little nervous about being in Florida, not used to it. I don't know. But now he's had the experience with Florida. Things were turning around like Noah said, and maybe you never know. Maybe Bobrovsky just finally does it in the playoffs and he finally dominates like we all expect him to.
The thing is that you got to remember that this is only a 5-game series.
Yeah,
upsets are probably going to happen more than they would in any 7-game series. So if there's an upset that might happen, for right now, Florida, I think they have a chance. I don't think they're going to get it. I'm going to give it 3-2 Islanders, but it's going to be close.
I'm going to go Florida here. I think Florida pulls it off 3-2.
I think I'm probably going to say the Islanders 3-2, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Florida Panthers won this one either.
I can see Florida winning this one.
It's a throw-up. It's a toss-up.
Pretty much.
Florida's just so talented as well. They have Barkov, Huberdeau, right? I think they have more star power at the forward position than the Islanders do. The Islanders have a lot. The Islanders are steady, but I don't think they have the top end power. They have Huberdeau, Barkov, Hoffman, Dadonov.
Islanders only have Barzal, and that's sort of star power.
Anders Lee,
Lee's not bad. I mean, you have good core pieces. You have Anders Lee.
I think it's more their defensive scheme that keeps them competitive, and their goaltending staying on top of their heads.
I think this is a good. I think this is going to be a really good matchup because these are, like you said, two very, very good veteran coaches that we have for both of these teams. And if anyone's going to whip their team right back into shape, it's going to be Quenneville and Barry Trotz.
This is definitely a series to watch. And I think another series to watch, and I think the series that has the likelihood of the highest likelihood of an upset will be number 6 Carolina versus number 11 New York Rangers. I think the Rangers with the right thing going, like the right vibe going, if it's a 5-game series, with Carolina likely not getting Dougie Hamilton back, their defense has been shaky, their offense has been inconsistent, the whole team has been inconsistent, and the Rangers have been on a hot streak with Panarin and Zibanejad finally showing that top-line potential. I think the Rangers are going to win this one in 4 games. I think the Rangers have got this. They got the better goaltending. They got the better forwards. And they don't have the better defense. But overall, they have the better team, in my opinion.
Yeah. You have to remember with Carolina, too, they might be getting Sami Vatanen back. So that could help out a ton. New York has the youth and talent that I thought Carolina would take in.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Shesterkin, Georgiev, King Henrik still down there. Pavel Buchnevich, he'll be coming back. I mean, and once again, you have an energized Chris Kreider who has a huge contract coming up. They weren't expected to be here, but with the way they were trending, the time may be now for them to reemerge.
I'm just saying though, that Carolina defense might be the best defense in the league. When you look at it, think about this. Dougie Hamilton might be able to return. I'm not sure what the status on that injury is, but he was out for the season.
Yeah.
But depending how late we start, we could see Dougie Hamilton, Brett Pesce, Sami Vatanen, Brady Shea, Hayden Fleury, and Jake Bean is really good. Whoever else they have, DeHaan. That's
Brady Shea.
For me, that's crazy. That could be the X factor. They could be the new Nashville Predators. But that being said,
They're forward.
I think that New York's run with Shesterkin has been phenomenal, and he was out with injury like right before the COVID-19 cancellation, but it was only a minor injury. If he comes back and the Rangers can continue that hot streak, I think they can win this. I'm going to disagree with Brandon, though. I'm going to give it 3-2 Carolina.
I think the biggest issue with Carolina, and this is why I say the Rangers, is that Banijad, Panarin are going off. The Rangers' defense is adequate. It's young, inexperienced, but adequate. Their goaltending is fantastic. And I think, like I said, when it comes to playoff hockey, goaltending matters. And we saw it last year with that conference series for Carolina where they got swept. Okay, the goaltending just couldn't keep up. And I'm interested to see if Reimer and Mrazek can do it for Carolina. I think the Rangers 3-1, but I honestly think the Rangers are winning this. But if the Carolina can get solid goaltending for 5 games, which can happen, who knows? What about you, Tree?
One more thing I forgot to mention about the Pens. Jake Gensel might be coming back.
True.
Oh, true.
There are a lot of those early injuries. We'll talk about some later with Colorado. They've been decimated. They are going to get a lot healthier.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge point.
My main comparison would be New York's defense versus Carolina's goaltending.
Yeah.
New York's defense at least manages an offense. Carolina's goaltending, if they can get their shit together, they'll win. But otherwise, I think they have the veteran experience that they need. Mm-hmm. But I think this is going to go 5, but I will lean Rangers here.
Yeah.
Because of just the instability in net for Carolina.
I trust Peter Mrazek to
67's legend.
Pick it up. Yes, 67's legend. I was going to say, loved watching him in junior. But I do trust Peter Mrazek. He's had a rough season, kind of like Bobrovsky, where they kind of expected more of Mrazek, especially with the good team that they had around him. What I will say is the reason I'm picking Carolina is that we haven't really had enough time to see how Carolina plays with this 2 additions on the defense that they got in the trade deadline with Shea and Vatanen. And for me, that's the scary part for the Rangers. They have no idea. And obviously they know one of the guys, Brady Shea, because they traded him to the Carolina Hurricanes. But I'd give it to Carolina just because I think they're too all around good. Whereas for me, the Rangers defense is not good enough. They just lost Brady Shea.
Yeah, you know what? I think when it comes down to it, I think the goaltending in New York is stable enough to make up for some of those mistakes that young defense will make for the New York Rangers. But it also we're talking like everything's like recent. These players haven't touched ice in months, so
of course.
Who knows, right? Who knows?
I will say they found a diamond in the rough in Shesterkin. He's like legit good. He is really good.
Georgiev too.
Yeah, that's a interesting situation. That might be one of those guys going to Seattle, honestly.
Who knows? Moving on now to number 8 Calgary, which pisses me off versus number 9 Winnipeg. I'm so mad that we lost out on Edmonton versus Calgary, Battle of Alberta. That's the series I was going to watch. But Winnipeg versus Calgary is a solid one too. Winnipeg brings the offense and the boom, and Calgary just brings the feistiness. So what do you guys think about this one before I talk about my opinion?
Winnipeg's defense is a major question mark for me. They still have issues on that back end. I'm surprised it hasn't been them earlier. I mean, Bufflin, he's not coming back.
He's
offense-wise, Brian Little's not coming back either, unfortunately. I don't know if he'll ever play again, unfortunately.
What happened to him?
Remember he had the eye injury?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, even with the recovery time, Brian Little's just not going to come back.
Yeah.
Scheifele's good, though. Scheifele, Laine, Kyle Connor, Nick.
Yeah, they have talent. Offensively, they'll be okay. It's going to have to rely on Hellebuck playing out of his mind.
Hellebuck.
Calgary's been iffy, but they have the firepower and they have the defense to do it. I'm going to go Calgary in 4.
For me, you have in Winnipeg probably one of the best offenses in the league. Scheifele, Wheeler, Connor, Laine. That's just Ehlers. Like there's so much firepower that this is one of those rare occasions where I think combined with the solid, phenomenal goaltending they've gotten from Hellebuck this year, I think this is the biggest chance of an upset that we're going to get. It is a 9 versus 8, so it's not an upset, but for me, I see Winnipeg 3-1 Winnipeg.
3-1 Winnipeg.
Yeah, I think Calgary's good, but I just don't. I think they are gonna have a tough time handling all of that Winnipeg offense.
I agree with you. I think Winnipeg probably wins this series. I think it's 3-2 though. I think Hellebuck and that Jets offense is going to overpower the Calgary Flames. The Flames, it's so hard, Tree, you could agree with this. You said this. It's so hard to predict the Calgary Flames because David Riddick is all over the place sometimes. That defense is all over the place, and that offense sometimes is lighting up the scoreboard, and sometimes it's getting shut out.
It gets ice cold. I almost forgot this too. They were exposed by Colorado's speed last year.
Yeah.
And if Winnipeg can have the speed in the Jets, it might get ugly.
I think Calgary has the grit. They have the skill. But they don't have. I don't know what they just don't have it. I don't know what it is, but they don't have it to win. For some reason, they just can never get over that hump. So I think Winnipeg goes on to the playoff, to the first round.
I also have this question about David Riddick because he not really split, but Cam Talbot played a decent amount of games for Calgary. Can David Riddick stretch a big span of games and staying consistent and playing well? Because a big problem with David Riddick has been his consistency, and we haven't even seen him as a full-fledged starter. Because he's been the starter. He's been the guy, but he's not playing the bulk of the games like Talbot's been taking a couple of them. And for me, that's something I'm also curious about. I think that's the difference between Winnipeg and Calgary. I think Calgary is a really good defense. Winnipeg is a really good offense. But Hellebuck is phenomenal. He's been phenomenal this year. He's shown over the years that he can be a phenomenal starter. And Riddick just hasn't proved it yet.
Like usual with Calgary, there's just so many question marks. And I look forward to those questions being answered whenever this play-in format begins. Let's get to the next one. Number 5, Edmonton versus number 12, Chicago. And now we all know why Chicago and Montreal were added. It's for the viewership ratings so they can go up. I get it. NHL is trying to get as many eyeballs on the TV as possible. I understand.
3-0 sweep.
Yeah, I think this series probably won't be close. But what I can say is about this series is that it's going to be fun to watch. Patty Kane, Jonathan Toews back in the playoffs versus Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. I'd look forward to watching that matchup.
Somebody does not want Edmonton in the playoffs. The one chance, I mean, I've never been hot on Edmonton's depth, but the one chance I feel like they have the ability to make the playoffs, they have to deal with coronavirus, a lockdown, and now have to play Chicago, who is, still has Kane and Toews.
Yeah. They can
Plus,
win the series alone.
Dominic Eichmann, not Eichmann.
Dominic Cahoon.
Cahoon. No, not Cahoon. Shit.
Kubalik.
Kubalik.
Oh, Kubalik. He's so good. I picked him up.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't know why I couldn't remember.
Yeah,
but you still have to brink it. And you've got Kirby Dach, who could, help develop. And
I didn't like that they traded Gustafson though. Eric Gustafson, the defenseman, to Calgary.
Yeah, but I remember not being a fan of Calgary's moves because I didn't think they got enough in return.
They didn't. I don't think. But here's the thing about Edmonton. I think it's kind of a weird situation because I think that Edmonton kind of reminds me just a little bit of like a 2020 version of the 2010 Chicago Blackhawks, where they are stacked top 6. They have guys like the Toews and Kane, McDavid and Draisaitl. You have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, great support. Andreas Athanasiou looked great. And you have decent defensemen, Clefbaum, Darnell Nurse, and a solid goalie. Not the best, but okay, just like Crawford was. Crawford was never top 5 in the league, but he was always good. And I think Mike Smith has been good this year.
I think there were some points where Corey Crawford was certainly a top 5 goalie, especially during the peak of that dynasty. But I do get what you're saying though.
I don't know. Crawford was always good, but he was consistently good for me. But the point is just that it's kind of like the old guys playing the new guys, and it's kind of a similar team. So it's just really how the stars on one team outplay the stars on the other team.
I think this one probably goes 3-1 Edmonton.
Yeah, I'm going to say 3-0.
Yeah, I don't want to say just because Patty Kane and Jonathan Toews, man, they're going to will their team to a win, at least one. They're not going to go without at least a win, in my opinion. Tree?
My thinking is in Chicago, you have two different ideals.
Yeah.
One, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs. But if you want them to win, you might get 5 more years of Stan Bowman. So which pill do you want to swallow?
Definitely not the second, the first.
And that's the thing about this
I'm going to
format. There are
say
so many
Edmonton in
teams.
5. I think it's going to be close.
There are so many teams that like are on that bubble, like Chicago, that they're like in the midst of a rebuild, and they're in the midst of not contending for a playoff spot, and that's why it's so hard to predict guys like Chicago, guys like Montreal. And honestly, I want to say 3-0 just because last year proved that there can be sweeps in the playoffs, and there can be many sweeps in the playoffs. So I don't want to just say everything's 3-1 and 3-2, even though they are close. There has to be a sweep there for me, and I think the 12 seeds aren't gonna surprise anyone.
Well, I think speaking of sweeps, I think the next matchup is the matchup of the sweep. I think number 7 Vancouver versus number 10 Minnesota will be a sweep in favor of the Canucks. I think there's rumors. I watched the Hockey Guy. If you don't check him out already, check him out on YouTube. He mentioned that Devin Dubnyk might not play in the format.
Dubnyk, I mean, their goaltending has been bad all year, though.
And on top of that, but if it's Alex Stalock as their starting goalie, I'm sorry, against Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser and that offensive juggernaut of Vancouver, yeah, Vancouver's going to sweep that, especially if Dubnyk's not in. I say Vancouver in 3, and I think Vancouver goes on and gets in that playoffs like they deserve to begin.
Finally.
Minnesota was kind of on a hot streak for a little bit there.
But we've had such a long break, and without Dubnyk, this is just my thinking. I think with such a long break, and with Dubnyk, like once again, we both agree goaltending is key. And without your top goalie and you got a backup, I don't like the odds for many at all. But that's me. Tree, what do you think?
I'm not big on many here either. I mean, sorry, but yeah, I'm going to go Vancouver in 4.
You know, I don't
know if they'll go that far, but
yeah.
You know, I think that Minnesota no, they're going to get swept. They're going to get swept. There's no chance.
They have some stuff.
They have good players, but I just don't think when you compare it to Vancouver that it's anywhere comparable at all. They have a decent defense, and Vancouver's defense is kind of young and kind of iffy, but they lose the goalie battle. They lose the forward battle, and for me, that just gives it to Vancouver.
Yeah, my motto on them is close but never close enough. That's Minnesota.
Minnesota is the definition of mediocre.
They have been the most mediocre NHL franchise I think I can ever think of.
For a long time. I mean, they sealed themselves into that fate by signing Parise and Suter.
Exactly.
I mean, they love them there, but
10-year was it 13-year contracts?
13-year, $98 million each, and I think they have about 6 or 5 more years left.
And shout out to the listeners out there and viewers that are watching this right now. Make sure to check out UrinatingTree's video on Minnesota Wild signings of Zach Parise and Zach Parise.
Ryan Suter.
Ryan Suter, yeah. Because that, like Tree said, kind of screwed them over for the long term in hindsight. Now, I think UrinatingTree, having him on the show, I cannot go on without saying this meme. So number 6, Nashville versus number 11, Arizona. Pecorine, he's too good right now. What do you think, Tree?
Arizona was playing horrible hockey before the break because they had straight up collapsed. And I thought this was the year they'd finally show up and emerge.
Yeah.
They were playing horrible hockey. Antti Raanta was inconsistent. Darcy Kemper could only hold for so long. Taylor Hall, once that trade happened, everything fell apart.
It was weird. It's sort of
it's just like they have pieces, but they can never put the puzzle together. I do not understand why.
It's sort of
I think it might cost Tocchet his job. You might need a different coach.
I'd say Tocchett's gone, but you can't really – I don't think you can win games when your best player is your goalie. And Darcy Kemper, over the past 2 years, it's been 2 straight years of having high hopes, playoff hopes, and they're just getting crushed 2 years ago.
I always keep thinking, okay, this is the year Arizona does it because Raanta was the most underrated goalie in the league. He keeps getting injured. Darcy Kemper comes out of nowhere to be one of the best goaltenders in the league. And how long until he gets injured? Ekman Larsson's been just sitting around rotting for about 7-8 years.
I think the Taylor Hall acquisition kind of reminds me of Matt Duchene. Just putting him on the top line and ruining the chemistry kind of ruined things for Arizona. And on top of that, losing both goalies for a long period of time, that definitely didn't help. So
It wasn't a
based
bad
on-
trade Arizona made. Like, they didn't really give up that much.
Kevin
but-
Ball is the main piece, yeah.
But, I mean, it has not worked.
No. But hopefully the break can maybe mend some things and help them get some chemistry. But
honestly, I don't think there could be a better opponent for the Arizona Coyotes than Nashville, because Nashville's had their own struggles. Pekka Rinne has been very shaky. He's not really good right now. And it's been UC Saros who's been winning a lot of those games. And UC Saros, it might be the passing of the torch time, because Rinne is getting up there.
Rinne's 36, I think.
They've been molding Saros into this great goalie. He's had many years to sit behind Rinne and learn off of one of the best goalies in the league. And I think right now it might be Saros' time. And for that reason, I'm going to pick Arizona to win this series in 4 games, because I think Saros is going to have a tough time, because even though the acquisition of Taylor Hall has been rough, I still think they have enough firepower to at least stun UC Saros. They still have guys like Clayton Keller, Taylor Hall, right? They're still a really good team.
I think I want to use the meme to my advantage and say Pekka Rinne, he's too good right now, and just make that joke. But I agree. I think Arizona just has the talent. Arizona has the goaltending that should be back healthy. I think Arizona, this is their time to prove that they're legit. So while I think Nashville might be the better team, and honestly is the better team, I think goaltending is everything, and Pekka Rinne has been inconsistent. Like Noah said, Pekka Rinne, he's not too good right now. I think Arizona, at least Darcy Kuemper comes back, I think Arizona can win this one in this best-of-5 series. I think Arizona's going to win this one in 5 games, 3-2. Tree, is Pekka Rinne is too good right now? What's Pekka Rinne? What's up with Pekka Rinne? What's your take?
I would say it's a lot more than that. I mean, Nashville's been having issues across the board. Remember, Laviolette got fired because he couldn't get the spark out of the team.
And they replaced him with a dud. So
John Heinz. I mean, he hasn't been terrible there, but I mean, that might be the jolt of a new coach. I remember saying, like, Matt Duchene is not the answer they need. And it's nothing against Matt Duchene. It's because they didn't need another scoring forward.
Yeah.
They didn't, and they lost a lot. They traded Subban away, and that just
although that could have been. I mean, they didn't
defense.
really. Well, I don't think anybody's won that trade.
No, that trade was just a disaster. At that point, you might as well just keep the guy and hope that he improves. But that being said, I just think Nashville, they've been too meh. There's no oomph, and at least for Arizona, you could say that a lot of their players get injured. But for Nashville, they signed Matt Duchene to an 8-year contract. They don't need Matt Duchene on an 8-year contract. And
they don't need Matt Duchene in general. Their offense is fine. The term and dollars is a lot, but with the amount that they, along with Ottawa, the amount that Nashville gave up in that deal to acquire Kyle Turris with Colorado, it was kind of obvious that they were going to try to get Matt Duchene.
And it's crazy because they traded away Sam Girard. They can use Sam Girard right now. Yeah. They could use him.
Fabro has not really emerged.
No.
Yet, anyway.
I think now that we've gone through the teams, we should get to the draft lottery. So let's get to that now.
So next we got the draft lottery. And oh my goodness, I think the draft lottery is one of the stupidest situations of this whole thing. I think the playoffs is bad, but if what the argument is about the playoffs, that the bad teams shouldn't be in the playoffs, then the bad teams are going to lose, and it is what it is. But the draft lottery, there is no reason, before I get into this, there is no reason that a team should have a chance to make the playoffs and also have a chance to win Alexis Lafreniere in the first overall pick.
Thank you.
It does not make sense. It's absurd to me that the NHL is just giving all of those. It just so happens that all those teams that are in this play-in tournament have the most attendance out of everyone in the league.
Could you imagine if Edmonton wins the lottery again?
Don't even make that joke around here, Trey. Don't even make that
calling bullshit.
And the crazy,
how many first-round picks are you gonna give this team to run into the ground?
And they've hit on one of them. That's just what's crazy about
it. Draisaitl.
I'm just thinking how dirty that would be. McDavid with Lafreniere. Holy cow!
They have. So we'll get into the odds here, but so obviously for the viewers that are not aware, the draft lottery will determine the first 15 picks in the 2020 NHL draft based on 3 to 6 drawings over 1 or 2 phases. It'll include 7 teams that obviously did not qualify for the playoffs, like it should. And it'll also include the 8 losing teams of the play-in tournament, which I think is insane. So the first phase, the regular lottery, is set for June 26th. That's official. And before the qualifying round. So obviously the qualifying round would be in like later. We don't even know when it's going to be. Yeah. This is going to be in late June, and
June 26th. Yeah.
We're gonna hope that if all 3 teams that win this lottery are in the bottom 7, then we do not have to do a second phase and crisis averted.
Mm-hmm. But we know that's not going to be the scenario.
We know that's not going to happen, and there's going to be a phase 2 just because, it's an Ottawa Senators fan thing. You just always have it in the back of your head.
Always.
So if any of the 8 placeholder teams have any of those picks, then there's going to be a second drawing in the phase 2. But first, let's just break down the percentages here really quick. Detroit's got the best chance. Detroit has the best chance of the 1 pick, 18.5%. Ottawa's got a 13.5% and then an 11.5% with the San Jose Sharks pick that they got with Erik Karlsson.
25. That would be 25% total, just for that listening, which
good math.
Technically gives Ottawa the highest odds, but also gives Ottawa a high chance of falling back to 5 and 6. So keep that.
Exactly. We're really hoping that doesn't happen. LA Kings 9.5%, Anaheim 8.5%, New Jersey 7.5%, and Buffalo 6.5%. And then you have the 8 placeholder teams, which combined, if I'm doing some quick math in my head right now, that's like 25%. And for
roughly 25, yeah.
Roughly 25% for combined for those qualifying teams. That's just crazy. Yeah. But in the first phase, the first, second, and third overall picks will be set if any of the placeholding positions not in the bottom 7 get any of the top 3 picks. Then a second phase will be conducted amongst the 8 teams who get eliminated from the qualifying round. So it could be Pittsburgh and could be Edmonton, which is crazy. The second phase, if the second phase obviously is not necessary if all of the 3 top picks are awarded to, let's say, Detroit, Ottawa, and LA. Then we're good. Crisis averted. Great. Yeah. If a qualifying round losing team wins each of the top 3 picks, the bottom 7 teams will be assigned picks numbers 4 to 10 in inverse order of their points percentage. If a qualifying round losing team wins 1 or 2 of the top 3 picks, any bottom 7 team not in the top 3 will be assigned their pick in inverse order of points percentage. And lastly, before we explode with the rants, the number of drawings in the second phase will depend on how many picks in the first phase are won by teams that lose in the qualifying round. The odds of each losing team in the qualifying round for the first drawing of the second phase are 12.5%. So that's not even based on points percentage. They all get an equal chance.
That's what I mean.
What do you think about this, guys?
You think that you'd have like an increased chance for the 7 teams that don't make it?
Yeah.
You think they change that up?
Yeah.
Because Detroit, you say, might go from 1 to 6?
No, Detroit, they're locked in at the first overall, like, highest chance, technically, as the worst team in the league. So Detroit is guaranteed a top 4 pick. Ottawa can fall back to 5-6.
All right. I was getting confused. Like, wait, they can fall to 6 now?
All good.
But yeah, everyone knows Detroit's probably going to fall to 4th. This is
how
how it always goes.
That's just
it
reminds me too much of Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah.
That Colorado Avalanche team was so bad. Yeah, twice.
I think, you know what? Firstly,
be reasonable here.
For everyone listening and watching, I definitely recommend looking up the rules for the 24-team playoff format and the draft lottery, because we're trying our best here to illustrate it and explain it to you. But even as I'm sitting here and I know what it is, I'm getting confused just listening to it.
Yeah, phase 2, like, it's just like, it's the same thing when I look at NASCAR segmented races. It's like, okay, well, what am I looking at? Like, the phase 2, everything just goes tits up.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm scared. I'm scared that it's going to be like one of those teams are going to win the lottery. It's going to be like a Columbus. It's going to be like an Edmonton. Someone's going to do it, and it's going to cause pandemonium across the league.
It'll be Phoenix because of the Taylor Hall curse.
Oh,
And that
true,
means
true.
that means Phoenix keeps their pick. It's lottery protected.
Taylor Hall, legacy of success.
And first overall, Hall has
A legacy of lottery luck. And it's just like, they won the lottery. They lost a ton of games. They won the lottery. They lost a ton of games.
If you want the first overall pick, just trade for Taylor Hall. But in my opinion, this draft lottery, like Ian Mendez said, friend of the show, by the way, Ian Mendez, TSN 1200 reporter, he mentioned that there should be a 2 lottery format where the Ottawa Senators are getting screwed here doubly. Now, not the only benefit for Ottawa compared to last month's rumored format for the draft lottery would be the fact that they have a shot at number 1 and number 2 now. However, what Ian Mendez said, and I agree, is the top 7 teams for the draft lottery are getting screwed over. They're not playing any of the playoff games. They don't get a shot at the Stanley Cup. And they're not playing likely until December or January because of how far back this season is going to get pushed back. So, honestly, this is not a regular year. These teams, there are 24 teams in the playoffs, and the draft lottery should be accustomed to that. These 24 teams are getting benefits of playing these games and playoff games. The 7 teams that missed should get a little bit more of a benefit of getting better chances at first overall or a better lottery selection. So the 8 teams that are going to be out in the play-in round or the round robin or whatever the hell you want to call it, those 8 teams, they should be allocated, slotted in on a separate lottery from the top 7 teams. Because Ottawa, Detroit, LA, Anaheim, and New Jersey and Buffalo got screwed over in this format. They just got excluded, but that's without the
And
point.
Buffalo was really close to the playoffs. When you look back, they were 2 games in hand of Montreal, and they were behind by 3 points. If they won both of those games, they were in the playoffs. Montreal's out. But
I think it's comical that Detroit beat Montreal 4 times.
That's crazy.
Yet Montreal is in the playoffs, and Buffalo, who had games in hand with Jack Eichel, would have been more fun to watch. They're out.
Buffalo was a mess, though. They had collapsed repeatedly. They have been just a shit show all year. And if you've seen some of the stuff Jack Eichel's been saying, it's like, dear God, get him out.
Oh, you got to make a big
You just see him like slam sticks around. It's like, break them all, Jack. Break them all.
Firstly, I feel bad for Jack Eichel. Not because of the amount of money he's making. He's making a good amount. I feel bad for the situation. But I also just feel bad about the fact that they invested $8-9 mil into Jeff Skinner. And the guy
$9 million for 8 years. They grossly overpaid him.
He scored 20 points.
So bad.
20
Yeah,
points.
I didn't realize. I did an interview with a Sabres fan a couple days ago. He only had like 14 goals this year.
That's insane. 14. It's terrible.
Yeah, the old Carolina GM warned them because he's like, he played up for a contract year, but I didn't think he'd be that bad.
Yeah, it's been a downfall, and it's terrible. But going back to the overall lottery, I don't like it. Top 7 teams should get a separate lottery, and the other 8 teams that come out of the round robin should have their separate lottery. Tree, I'm just wondering, as a Pittsburgh fan, you're given the opportunity now to go on to win a cup, or even now collectively as the 8 teams, Pittsburgh is in the 8-team collective of a 25% chance of getting first overall. So what do you think about this? I'm sure it's positive. I'm sure you're happy.
As I said, I just feel like it's too long of a runoff because I don't know if you're going to start. There's too many variables. There's a lot of work to do. And I think how many of them are going to be stuck internationally? I think 15 to 20% of players went home.
Yeah.
For the outbreak. I just feel like it might just be better off to just punt.
I think
but that's just me.
The travel issue won't be an issue because the Department of Justice in the United States of America already classified professional athletes as essential workers, so they'll be able to enter the country without a problem. Canada, that's the issue. Canada likely won't have hub cities because they're not granting exceptional status to these players like the United States is.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is, I thought Toronto had grumblings that they might, but
it all comes down to it. The Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, does. Obviously, public safety is more important than hockey games, so I can't fault him if he doesn't want that thousands.
Yeah,
of
I mean, if he
people-
doesn't allow like the Canadian teams to travel, they're done.
like
Nothing's happening.
Well, not on top. Vancouver already spoke about practicing in Seattle, so
Yeah.
the odds of the Canadian teams migrating down south for the finish off the season is pretty high, just based off of the public health restrictions in Canada compared to the United States.
Mhm.
In the end of the day, probably the hub city is just going to be both of them are just going to be in the States. They're
Very
probably
likely.
going to be relatively
Probably, I'd
close.
say Vegas and I don't know, maybe what would you think?
Well,
Something
based
that
on-
hasn't really been hit. Maybe I don't know. I would say Minnesota, but not with
Pittsburgh's in the
everything.
running.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's in the running.
Pittsburgh and Columbus are those two eastern
Columbus
cities.
likely, I think, because of all the space and hotels and dorms and stuff.
Yeah,
All that space.
Pittsburgh's a little more cramped. Columbus is open.
Columbus
I can
is
see
very
Columbus.
I can see Columbus and LA or Las Vegas. No, not
I-
LA.
I-
sorry, Las
I do
Vegas.
want to make one more point about the draft lottery and
Sure.
everything involved in that. Just looking at the seeding, the Ottawa Senators have the New York Islanders first round pick this year.
Good
That
point.
first round pick is
Okay.
lottery protected, but they still have it. So if the New York Islanders lose, and there's a bunch of upsets of the higher seeded teams, so like Carolina and Pittsburgh and then Edmonton and Nashville, Ottawa can be getting another top 10 pick if that New York
Ottawa's
Islanders
sitting pretty.
Yeah,
You'd be
they
looking
are.
at,
They,
3
I
top
think
15
Ottawa is
picks in a
probably
deep
one of the biggest
draft.
benefactors. Ottawa and Pierre Dorion, Eugene Melnyk. They're happy right now.
Yeah. I think this is
I mean, I feel bad for Dorian because he's a puppet for Melnick, but I mean,
he's done a good
hey,
job
it's working out in his favor. The Carlson trade looked bad in the beginning, but now it's like, holy shit.
for the hand that
We have another top 5 pick. Sweet.
Let's do a little screen fist bump here, eh, Tree? Let's get a little bit of a screen fist bump. Bam. But what I'm saying is, hold up, I'll put it right there. Little social distancing.
Gotta, yeah. Gotta make it rain. Yes, hands.
What I'm saying for Pierre Dorion is, with the hand that he's been given from Eugene Melnyk, hasn't done a terrible job. I think the biggest out of the big trades he's done, like the Carlson deal, the Zingle deal, the Duchesne, and of course the Stone deal. The one deal I don't like really is the Stone deal. Should have got more back.
Brandstrom had a rough year.
He's been okay. He had a often up and down year, but I do have a lot of hope for him. I think I watched him live. He's going to be good. I'm telling you.
What I will say about the Carlson trade is Norris is looking legit. Josh Norris is looking great. And another thing about Dorion is his trade, the Brassard trade as well, and obviously the Pajot trade.
Yeah.
He has done pretty well in both of those. He got Jacob Bernard-Docker.
I have a question though. What's happened with Philip Gustafson? He doesn't seem to be doing well in the A.
Yeah, as a Pittsburgh fan, I'm glad you brought that up actually, because Noah and I discussed this in the last episode, and we find ourselves as close friends, like literally best friends, Noah and I. We find ourselves talking about two prospects a lot. It's Logan Brown and it's Philip Gustafson. Logan Brown, we don't need to get into right now. We got into that with Patrick Williams last episode. But in this episode, we're going to talk about Philip Gustafson. And what I think about Philip Gustafson is he's had inconsistency issues, yes. But this year has been more of an upside look at the progression of Philip Gustafson's career. In January in the American Hockey League, he was the goaltender of the month. And there's been times where he's been I think he's been leapfrogged by Joey Decourt in the goalie pipeline. But we got to look at Marcus Hogberg's progression. And we need to look at the progression usually that comes out of goaltending. These goalies take a while to progress. They take a while to develop. And Gustafson's only played the last year and a half shortened season this year. So a year and a half in North America, the shortened ice. It's a different type of style of play. So give Gustafson a couple more years. We gave Hogberg 4 years. He's not dominating, but he's playing really well in the NHL now. And I honestly still expect Gustafson to be a solid NHL goalie in the future. But I think we need to pump the brakes of him being the next Carey Price, because I think that those expectations are too high and are probably unlikely.
I will say about Hogberg is that right before he got into the NHL, we were Brandon and I have had conversations being like, when are we just going to let this guy go to the KHL or whatever already? He's just going to go overseas. He's not going to get an opportunity. But then he explodes on the scene.
Yeah.
And I think Ottawa's one of those teams. They're like, I know Pittsburgh's one of those teams that just have a plethora of goalies that they can
So many.
use. Obviously, Ottawa's aren't NHL ready, but Ottawa has so many goalie prospects, and they might have the deepest goalie prospect pool in the league. They have so many.
Honestly, you can never have too many goalie prospects,
Exactly.
especially with how hard they are to gauge.
Tree, I got to ask you a question. Before we get into like the news of the day for June 2nd. Today's May 31st, but for June 2nd, we're going to say the news of the day. Has a couple of Pirates notes. But what I wanted to ask is, you got Tristan Jarry, an all-star. You got Matt Murray, a two-time Stanley Cup champion. And you got Casey DeSmith, who's proved he's an NHL goalie. What do you do with 2 spots in the NHL and Seattle draft looming? What would you do as the general manager of the Pittsburgh Penguins?
I'd say try and trade Matt Murray. You have a lot of teams that need goaltending help. You can get a nice return. San Jose needs goaltending help. I would say, San Jose is the first one that pops up.
Yeah.
Los
Then
Angeles.
try LA because, I doubt they get him, but Jonathan Quick's falling off.
No, Mackenzie Blackwood's nice. Never mind.
Yeah, Blackwood has done well. He's just getting hung out to dry.
Buffalo, if Ullmark regresses?
It depends. Carter Hutton is pretty stable as their 1A, 1B. So I don't know if they'll do anything there.
I think
Toronto, maybe?
I wouldn't say that. What I will say though is there's definitely a market always for starting goaltending. And Matt Murray is a 2-time Cup champion.
Edmonton.
So Edmonton, yeah.
Edmonton wouldn't be a bad one.
Yeah, Edmonton. Maybe even Chicago, right?
Minnesota.
Chicago. I don't know what Corey Crawford's future is, but
Yeah, with the vertigo issues,
He can
Minnesota
go
too because of the Bill Guerin connection.
You
Yeah.
can go with great teammate Alex Galchenyuk and go to Minnesota.
Oh yeah, I was really disappointed in Galchenyuk. I thought he'd at least maintain the statistics, but he did nothing.
No.
He's falling off.
Nothing.
It's
And
unfortunate.
it's just it's sad because I thought he was really good in Montreal. I thought he had upside, but it's
had
he
some
has
good moments.
never reached it.
Yeah, he never reached the potential, and you see that a lot out of Montreal. You see a lot of these players never reach their potential. Jacob Delarose, for example.
Noah Juleson.
Juleson, Michael McCarron, the big.
Nikita Sherbak.
Yeah,
too
they
many.
have a graveyard of screwing up development. So Montreal is not somewhere you want to look for how they develop players.
Oh yeah. It's the pressure of the big market plus the way that they're set in their ways.
And they're set in the ways. They always some Habs fans are going to hate me for this, but I've never understood or liked the idea that Montreal needs to have a French coach.
It's backwards.
Hire the best
This
coach.
isn't the 80s anymore.
Hire the best coach and teach them French, because I get it. You need to speak French in Quebec. It's a French province, so I get it. But if you're hiring and recycling the same coaches, Julien, Therrien, maybe even Boucher eventually, it's not going to work. You're not going to.
I thought they'd rehire Alain Vigneault, but
honestly,
that
they
would've been
might
fun.
eventually. Well, all I'm
One
saying
day.
is the Habs need to get out of their ways. There's something called language lessons, and they can hire an English, European, I don't care, whatever.
translator.
Yeah, and just have
They have a lot of
translator.
American coaches that have translators in Russia.
And there's a lot of AHL coaches that are looking for NHL jobs, and they know that they can't go to Montreal because they don't speak French.
Yeah, and I think you can look in the MLB, like Edwin Encarnacion is a famous example. As a Blue Jays fan, he always had his translator with him. It was highlight of my life watching the Blue Jays, well, one of them anyways, was seeing Edwin in the locker room being champagne poured all over him. He had the pear in his hand, and he's trying to get an interview done with Sportsnet. And the funniest thing is they're trying to communicate together, but it's so loud, so they weren't able to communicate. But yeah, Montreal, stupid. Just hire a coach and get a translator, but whatever. Now to the news of the day. June 2nd, we're filming this May 31st, but we wanted to do it on the day we're uploading it, which will be on Tuesday, June 2nd. Firstly, on this day in sports history, 1883, the first night of baseball under lights. The first ever night game in baseball with lights being put on in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Long way we've gone from lights, camera action to baseball to
Banging garbage cans. I had to say it. I'm sorry.
And it took 100 for the Chicago Cubs to get night lights.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Wrigley. They always have to play middle of the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Next sports news. 1901, Benjamin Adams arrested for playing golf on a Sunday in New York. Now, this, I don't really know the backstory about this, but a producer liked this story, thought it was interesting, and I don't think you'd see this anytime soon in this era. I don't think we'd ever get arrested for golfing on Sunday unless they're breaking social distancing guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
The next one, this one, Tree, is for you. In 1903, the Pirates won a rare triple header versus the Dodgers. What do you think about that? A triple header.
I mean, if baseball season wants to condense as many games, you might be seeing a lot of double and triple headers.
Now, I think that's a perfect segue before we get into the topics of the week. The main topic is firstly, the NBA has decided, and it looks like they're going to return to play sometime in late July in Orlando. But I don't really want to talk about that. I really want to talk about the greediness of the Major League Baseball owners. They're asking these players to take a huge pay cut.
Massive pay cut.
Massive pay cuts. And these prospects are getting cut left, right, and center. Major League Baseball is in a disaster right now. Rob Manfred's ineptness is showing. And Tree, I'm just wondering, I don't think baseball's returning this year.
If baseball doesn't return, then they might go straight into a player strike because the CBA expires and they're at each other's throats.
They're already at each other.
Owners have colluded for a while. Like the lower end baseball players aren't making shit. The bigger players are, they're making their money, but the average player, it's kind of falling apart.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a mess because this is a crucial time for baseball.
It is, especially with standing attendance going down.
Attendance is going down in a lot of places. They're not going to get attendance. I mean, considering the whole situation.
There's always that issue.
But
there's always that issue going on.
You have a sort of thing with social media. You don't play games. Guess where they're going to go? You're going to go the route of boxing and horse racing. Nobody's going to give a shit about it unless it's the World Series.
And honestly,
exactly. I'm scared. I'm scared for the MLB. I'm scared for the state
it could be a death blow for the league. And the NHL realizes this, and that's why they wanted to get shit hammered out. Even the NFL, I thought they'd have a lockout, but
NFL is ready to go.
Yeah, the NFL is in a perfect spot. You could call this a conspiracy about the NFL.
You're wrong when you're wrong when you're the one that's when you being Rob Manfred, when you're screwing this up so poorly, and Gary Bettman is somehow doing way better than you are. What a world we live in.
Everybody hates Gary Bettman, and even he is not getting bitched at.
Out of the four commissioners, I think he's probably the best.
That's so
say Silver.
crazy to think about.
I don't know. I'm not going to get into it. I just.
Yeah, I would say Silver because he at least is leading.
Yes. What I will say about Adam Silver is I didn't like what happened with the Hong Kong thing. I'm not going to get into it, but I don't like that at all. I think
agree with
it was cowardly. However, I think Adam Silver has the interest of the players and the interest of the league. And I think in that aspect, he's the best commissioner. He really cares about the players, and it really shows on the on-court product. But I think overall, it's Gary Bettman and Adam Silver somehow. Well, not Adam Silver, but it's somehow that Gary Bettman's in the conversation as the best commissioner. It's shocking. It just shows the testament of how crap Roger Goodell and how terrible Rob Manfred is as well. Mm-hmm. Moving forward now, a little fun here. Tiger Woods, Peyton Manning won win in the championship for charity golf match against Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson. I wasn't able to watch this. I really wanted to, but it was nice to see some live sports and some charity to go to COVID-19 relief, I believe. So, guys, what did you guys watch? Noah, did you guys catch it? Did you guys read about it? What do you think?
I wasn't able to catch it. I heard Tom Brady did poorly, though.
Yeah, Tom choked, man. What happened? He's supposed to be the GOAT.
Maybe not. Maybe because of all the playoff runs and Super Bowls, he's never really had a chance to work on his golf game. Maybe
probably it.
The next move was from the Philadelphia Flyers, a rival of Pittsburgh, and Noah Luden's family is from Philadelphia. So Noah, I want to hear what you have to say about this. The Flyers signed defenseman Linus Hogberg to an entry-level contract. He was a fifth-round pick in 2016 from the Flyers. So, Noah, what do you think about this defensive signing?
I think he's good. I think he's been playing a little bit better than what they thought. I don't think he's gonna be a world beater, but you never know. He's a guy to look at. He's a draft pick of the team from a few years ago. I think that if he just nose down, he definitely has potential to make the NHL.
Yeah.
To how much of an impact he makes is beyond me, but I think this is a decent. Might as well keep your fifth-round pick rather than just letting him go.
And what about you, Trey?
I mean, about Philly, there's not much you can really say else besides that.
All right. Well, I think there's another defenseman who's young, who's on the other end of this. Well, Hogberg got the entry-level contract. Sean Day got terminated. Sean Day, in a span of 5 years, went from exceptional status in the OHL, the Ontario Hockey League, which is junior hockey, which does not happen often. The likes of John Tavares and Connor McDavid are some of the only few that have been granted exceptional status. So Sean Day went from granted exceptional status in the OHL to being drafted in the third round by the Rangers to being cut in a span of 5 years. So Sean Day, what a fall from grace. What do you guys think of that?
It shows that scouting isn't an exact science.
Yeah.
Sean Day was considered to be an elite prospect. I remember the Pens bitching because they picked someone else over Sean Day, and it was the worst thing in the world. Sean Day never developed, though. I remember hearing grumblings about work ethic issues, or was it just he just didn't have talent?
I think the talent was always there, but of course, there's a lot that happens behind the scenes that we don't see, right?
Yeah, it happened with Pouliot and Connor Ingram.
Yeah,
a lot of players have been getting granted exceptional status.
Shane Wright.
That's kind of the issue. They want to just throw that label on everyone now. Ever since John Tavares got it, and he was phenomenal, and now that they see that this one player that we got exceptional status, he looks really good. Let's just give it to I don't think you should give exceptional status to a guy that's probably going to make the NHL. You want to give exceptional status to a guy who's going to be a top 10 player in the league.
Well,
either that or lower the age.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I think the only mistake that the OHL's made with the exceptional status was giving it to Sean Day, because what we've seen so far from Shane Wright, who may or may not join the show, we're working on it, ladies and gentlemen. Just a heads up. Shane Wright, the guy scored 30 goals, 30 plus, 35, 36 goals with Kingston this year. So as a guy that's younger than me, scoring that many goals in that league, Shane Wright will definitely be the first overall or top 3 pick when he's in the NHL. The guy has the skill. It's there. But Sean Day, unfortunately, just didn't work out. Now, moving forward to some football, we got the Derpity Derps here, the New York Giants. Former cornerback for the Giants, Eli Apple, signed a 1-year contract with the Carolina Panthers. So, Tree, as a big football fan, I was wondering what you think about this.
Eli Apple is a lightning rod. He had that issue in New York. New Orleans was never a big fan of him. Yeah. He'll be fine as maybe like a third corner.
Yeah.
But if he's just starting, you're in trouble.
He's just one of those players who just did not meet expectations at all, and he's looked pretty bad in the process.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's sort of like
Giants fans hate 2 players, Eli Apple, Eric Flowers.
Yeah. Eric Flowers is terrible.
And one of them got $10 million a year for whatever reason.
Well, Eric Flowers is a terrible tackle, and on top of that, Apple. Sorry, that just rhymed. But Eli Apple reminds me sort of like Josh Norman. Was really good, and then for a couple of years, and then just sort of like fell off out of nowhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Moving forward now with some non-sports news, but I begged Noah to put this in the script. On Twitter the other day, a little bit of a lighthearted news. In the St. Lawrence River in Montreal, and I hope they steer this guy back to the ocean, a humpback whale was seen in the St. Lawrence River, which has never happened, I don't think. So I wonder what you guys think of that. Imagine you're sitting in your apartment in Montreal. You have a river in front of you, and all of a sudden you see a whale. What would you do if you saw that, Tree? And then no after.
I'd probably be startled.
Yeah,
I'd be like, oh.
It's a little startling.
You forget how big it is until you actually see it. I've never seen it, but I'll probably be like, oh, shit.
Well, I'll tell Giordano, please put that clip on top of here real quick because I want everyone to see it. And if you haven't, go on Twitter and find it because it's funny. Noah.
It's pretty funny. My cousin was actually on a bike ride in Montreal, and he was biking by the St. Lawrence River, and yeah, he just saw it, and he's like, what the hell am I looking at? And, I'm pretty surprised, but, maybe the whale can be a good mascot or something for the Habs. They need something to go right for them.
Hey, UP's a fantastic mascot. What I will say as a baseball fan and coming from a family that's all Expos fans, bring back the Expos.
Please bring back the Expos.
Yeah, bring back the Expos. Hopefully Ottawa will get the Lynx back, but whatever. On top of that, UP's a fantastic mascot, but I do hope this humpback whale returns home safely because he's going the wrong way. The whale is going the wrong way, and if he continues going that way, the whale might hit Ottawa.
Oh, please no.
You don't want to come to Ottawa, Mr. Humpback Whale. The water is not clean. Now, we got a few questions from just Noah and I for you, Tree. And then we got maybe 40 or 50 fan questions through Reddit and Twitter and stuff, which I've said this to Noah. I've said this to our producer, Giordano Ladisa. For the amount of people that I've had on the show, the amount of people I've had on the podcast, I don't think I've had a fan base as loyal as yours as UrinatingTree. So that really speaks testament to the content you make. So I wanted to give you a compliment there. But the first question that we have for you is, what's your take on the state of Pittsburgh sports teams? So we can look at individually the Penguins, the Pirates, and then the Steelers.
The Penguins are in the final couple years of their window, and they know it. That's why they went all in for Zucker and Marlowe, and they've made all those big trades the last couple of years. I mean, I was surprised how well they've done in stretches. I figured they were done because they look so lifeless against the Islanders. But, I mean, it's kind of like a make or break year. I mean, you have, about a couple years left before your big guns start declining?
Yeah, because right now Crosby and Malkin are going at they're still going. They're chugging away.
Early 30s, but how long does it keep going? I mean, Crosby's 32. Malkin, I think, is 33.
Yeah. You got a couple more years until they hit 30. Once you hit 34, 35 is, even if you're generational, the talent's definitely going to eventually decline. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not superhuman.
Sometimes it happens earlier. Sometimes it happens later.
But what I will say is Crosby and Malkin are not slowing down. So I wonder when that regression is going to happen, because right now nothing's happening.
And when that happens, the Pens are going to go down.
Yeah, I do want to bring up for just a second. I remember this like a few minutes ago. Like, how was Evgeny Malkin not in that NHL top 100 players of all time list?
Jonathan Taves. I mean, you had Jonathan Taves over Malkin and Jumbo Joe. That was bullshit.
Yeah, I feel like just because you've captained a team and you've won a lot of Stanley Cups, I think in the end of the day, you also have to be a phenomenal player and skilled player to be on that list. And Jumbo Joe, I mean, he's so good. He's been so good for so long. And same thing with Malkin. That just irked me, but they're definitely both Hall of Famers in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Crosby and then Malkin for sure.
I think it's disrespect. Sort of like Drew Brees with New Orleans getting excluded from the top 100.
Oh, my gosh.
That was BS.
That
was. Come on.
He has the most touchdowns in NFL history, and here he is with not being in that all NFL 100 team.
Noah and I were in Mexico when they were revealing these top 10s for each position, and I remember they added some like mediocre 500 1930s quarterback over Drew Brees. And Noah and I just look at each other. We're like, listen, we didn't watch the player, so we can't judge. But judging off what we know from Drew Brees, he got snubbed. What do you think?
That quarterback literally had more interceptions than touchdowns.
I don't get it, man. But moving on, the Pirates. Tree, what the hell's going on with the Pirates?
They're fucked. I mean, they tried to pretend they were competitive for years, and now they're paying the price. So I honestly don't care if there's no season because the Pirates suck and they would have been garbage. So,
yeah.
I mean, they had to trade Marte. They had to get rid of, the executive branch. I mean, that should have happened 2-3 years ago.
That Chris Arthur is terrible. He just gave away 2 franchise players.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that
then he
Archer
acquired and he grossly overpaid Chris Archer, and that ended up becoming, I hated that trade from the beginning. So don't call me a bandwagoner.
And then Snell and Meadows are looking really nice.
Meadows, yeah.
Or Glassnow and Meadows are looking really good.
Snow was never going to develop in Pittsburgh. So
No, they just it's something about the pitchers. It's like Garrett Cole he was always good, but the second he got to Houston,
because they individually develop players, they allow them. They don't preach fastball command or pitch to contact. They allow them to use their stuff. That's why they got significantly better. Same can be said for Charlie Morton once he got to Houston.
Yeah,
true.
That's true.
Because say what you want about how the batters with the trash can banging, their pitchers were still dominant, extremely dominant.
I think
you got to give them that.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite moments of watching your videos, Tree, which I watch religiously. Okay, I think Noah and I both do. We've been fans since day one, and I was so excited for you to have you on SENS Talk a couple years ago, and I'm even more excited now to have you on the podcast. But I think one of my favorite moments from your videos was when you broke down that Russell Martin home run, Blue Jays legend, Montreal native. That when you said that was the highlight of the Pirates for like the last 15, 20 years, I felt nothing but sadness. I was so sad. I'm like, that is depressing. So hats off to you for being a Pirates fan still.
I grew up in the city. That's the only reason why.
I do have a question about one player, though. And Brandon knows who I'm going to ask about, I think. And it was a couple years ago in our fantasy league. I was like middle of the pack. And I picked up Trevor Williams. This is not last season, but the season before. And I picked up Trevor Williams. And along with him and Garrett Cole and some other guys, I just like surged into the playoffs with Trevor Williams being phenomenal.
Remember that.
And then this year he's gotten – and then the last season he was a lot worse. Does he have any like – potential to do well? I'm hoping for the guy because also his Twitter account is a great follow.
What do you think of Trevor Williams, Trey?
He's not bad. I mean, he'll probably be traded, but
I'm hoping for him.
Depends on the return. I mean, yeah, if you're gonna rebuild, do a deep rebuild.
And moving forward now with the Steelers, Big Ben coming back. The defense is legit. The offense has questions. What are you thinking there?
With the Steelers, I mean, it's probably going to be more of the same stuff. They're pretending that Ben Roethlisberger is going to be the answer when in reality it's a 38-year-old quarterback coming off of a major elbow surgery.
Yeah.
So,
you guys making the playoffs? What do you think?
Maybe wild card at best.
Fair enough.
I mean, last year the AFC was pretty close in that part. Yeah. So, yeah, you never know. Maybe some of your guys just improve a little bit. I don't know. I don't see it for Pittsburgh. Just I kind of see a collapse coming. It's just something waiting to happen, especially with Ben Roethlisberger. I just feel like he might even get injured again, and you never know.
Yep,
that might be it.
Yeah.
So we have the next question we have here is obviously a lot of your videos are centered around one team or one person, whether it's legacies of failure or on forgotten lolcows. How do you decide what team or what person or executive or player to use or to talk about in your videos?
I mean, it really needs a moment, and then there's like enough to go on. Jacksonville, a lot's happened, for example. That was my recent one. So, like, Ngakoue's probably going to get traded. More players got traded.
Yeah.
Jalen Ramsey. So it's a lot of build-up there. Washington had the whole Bruce Allen scandal last year.
Well,
San Jose was just
the culture.
a train wreck.
New
Jersey was just a disaster.
Senators won. You had plenty.
And then when I was editing, Ray Shero got fired. So
yeah. I think it's just with your videos, there's so many dumpster fires in the sports world that you just benefit from it, Moving forward now, the next question. Has there been a time when you made a lolcow video about a team and they suddenly do extremely well? And I actually know the answer to this.
There are a couple of them. I mean,
Philadelphia.
I mentioned Milan Lucic's scoring streak. He scores a goal. Yeah. The Eagles win a Super Bowl. The Jags, they got good after that. Bears, but they immediately went back to it. So
yeah, that's true. Pecorine, that's a meme right there itself.
Oh, that was the old jinx.
I love the jinx. Love.
Well, sport is cyclical too, so there'll always be ebbs and flows, which is why some videos age poorly, then age extremely well. Like the Jacksonville video, the Bears video recently, kind of the Rams video recently.
No, the Rams have fallen off. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
I hate
Capel.
as a
Capel does.
Before we get into the fan questions, which, by the way, thank you so much for everybody that tweeted out all the questions on Reddit, on Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. Thank you. But as a 49ers fan, just wondering, what do you think about them 49ers?
The Niners?
Yeah.
They're not bad. I'm worried about regression for them if, like, Garoppolo doesn't take that next step.
I'm not too worried just because of Kyle Shanahan. He's an offensive genius, and I think they'll be okay. But we'll see.
Brandon knows what I think about Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah,
we're not going to get into it now.
We'll get into that. We'll have a debate about that in another episode.
I feel like we're just going to have one episode where we just debate about a bunch of stuff. And Jimmy G, is he good versus is he mediocre, is going to be the main argument. And
he could be great. He could be great. But that's TBD. We'll get to the questions.
Next, we got some fan questions here. First one from GoHawksMan at GoHawksMan12. Do you have a favorite NBA team? Obviously, there's no Pittsburgh NBA teams.
Yeah. I grew up liking the Toronto Raptors, so I've kind of followed them. So if I had a favorite, it would probably be that one.
We the North. Let's go.
Something about having that whole country behind you, like 36 million people in the whole country around one team. That's what's sick about Toronto.
Yeah. I think I like that,
Imagine if the Grizzlies didn't move.
Oh.
Yeah, that would be Division Central.
Those jerseys are so nice, the old vintage Vancouver Grizzly jerseys. I need to buy one. They're beautiful. But I think it's funny. No one are casual fans of the Raptors. We're not diehards like with the Ottawa Senators.
Exactly.
But, as Canadians, we're always going to support the local team. And when the Raptors won the NBA championship, that was huge, not only for the Raptors organization, who have been struggling to win one for years, basketball for general in Canada. And I think we're going to see a huge wave of basketball talent coming out of Canada. We already have, and I think there's going to be more. So I'm looking forward to that. Now, the next question from at Ryan_Strang, he asked, what would you say, in your opinion, is the most terribly fantastic tank bowl ever?
It wasn't really a tank bowl, but Pittsburgh, Miami in 2007. It was a huge monsoon at Heinz Field. The one thing I remember is, like, it was nothing but punts and, like, grinding. The final score came out to be, like, 3-0 on a field goal from Pittsburgh. Look it up sometime. Like, the punt literally just sticks in the ground. There's so much moisture.
Holy crap.
Yeah, the football.
I need to make a video on that while I'm in lockdown.
They're just so fun to look at. You got wash it when the New York teams played against each other. Oh my gosh, the Jets and the Giants. They are they were a special type of bad. The Jets have actually gotten a little bit better. They improved towards the end of the season. Next question we got from at Cooper Hernick. He asks, do you have any plans for any Toronto sports team videos?
Not that I know of yet. I know, I was thinking, a couple of years down the road, I would have done the Raptors' Legacy of Failure if they didn't win. But, well, they won. So, because there was a lot of failure in that stretch.
I think all the Toronto teams are in too good of a spot.
Yeah, I mean, the Blue Jays are in a nice spot. They're developing. And maybe, the Maple Leafs, I mean, it would be the half-century of failure bid for the Maple Leafs. That's it. Because there's a lot of history there.
That's what I'm saying. You need to do a video on the Leafs because, come on, 50 plus years of no cup. They haven't won a first round since 2004, which we will not mention who they beat. But they haven't won a first round.
I'm aware of the lopsided Battle of Ontario. Some battle.
We don't need to bring that up here.
The Battle of Ontario just always has a way to be extremely lopsided. Obviously in the early 2000s it was all Toronto, but then in the 2010s it was all Ottawa basically. Toronto had trouble even when the team was better than Ottawa. Toronto had such trouble beating Ottawa once out of 4 tries.
Which makes it so weird because in the 2000s Ottawa probably had one of the best teams ever to not win a cup Dominic
Yeah,
Hasek.
like they were like the number 1 seed and they got beat by Toronto.
It's despicable. But the next question comes in from Job Sagers. He asks, "What's the amount of frustrating losses due to painful under or overthrows by Big Ben, and how many overthrows is Big Ben expected to have this year?" And overall, in other words, a little confusing the tweet, but we do appreciate Job Sagers for sending it in. Overall, he's asking how many days of our Steelers are we supposed to be expecting?
Oh God. Hopefully none.
Hopefully, but I'd love to see some. The content's great.
God, please, no. Run its course.
So what you're saying is even if the Steelers go like 6-10, but it's not but like it's sort of like a to be expected kind
More
of
because
thing.
they
Like,
just
what
suck.
qualifies?
I don't
What
know. It's just
qualifies?
drama and like turmoil.
Yeah, the
Fair enough.
Steelers have been full of
That-
that lately.
Like I did not expect to do that every goddamn week of the 2018 season.
That was insane. That was insane. I'm like, what is going on? And what made me laugh was that the Steelers were literally the Ottawa Senators without the winning, and less disaster. But the drama around the team was like the Ottawa Senators, except the Senators were losing and the Steelers were winning. You know?
Mm-hmm.
It surprises me still that team somehow made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Or
Steelers?
Yeah.
No, they didn't make the playoffs that year. They collapsed.
Oh, what was the run?
2018, 2017 was the one where
yeah,
they went 13-3, but it was very deceiving because they never played a real quarterback. They always like coasted on talent, and then they'd have this random bullshit drive where Antonio Brown would make this amazing catch, but their talent would bail them out. Chris Boswell would kick this long field goal, and everyone would pretend everything's fine.
I still remember when they were playing. I forget who it was against, but it was in the snow. It was like a game with snow, and the Pittsburgh Steelers like had that last gas thing. They received a punt, and they had to do the whole lateral, the 2-minute drill, whatever. They had to lateral a bunch of times, and Antonio Brown had it, and he's running to the end zone.
Miami. It was against Miami, and he ran out of bounds.
Yeah.
And his foot just like barely runs out of bounds. That was so sad. Especially because Ian Eagles, the commentator, he was like so excited. Antonio Brown, unbelievable. And yeah, it didn't count.
It didn't count. I do remember that.
Yeah, so the next question we got here is from @JoeQuinn2. Which is the biggest lol cow in all pro sports?
It would be a toss-up between the Browns and the Knicks.
I'd probably give it to the Browns.
Yeah, but the Knicks are a shit show, and they are
Knicks-
fantastic.
Hey, don't sleep on the Knicks.
Yeah, the Knicks are the crapshoot. The Browns are the legacy of failure, and the Ottawa Senators are in a league of their own. That's my take. That's
But at least for the Browns and the Sens, they look good. The Knicks are just laughable every time. Like they lose out on
James Dolan.
everything.
James Dolan's an idiot.
Yeah,
This is the fact.
that helps.
The next question comes in from Phillips Regis. Phillips_Regis. He asks, what would you like the Seattle hockey team to be named? Most people like the Sockeyes, while Totems, Cougars, and Sea Lions are also pretty solid choices. What are you thinking there, Tree?
I like Totems and Metropolitans for that old history.
Yeah. The jerseys are cool with the green, red, and white or black with the Metropolitans.
I mean, I would not like Kraken. It just like 290s.
You don't like the Kraken?
I
I'm
not
agree
crazy
with the
about it.
Kraken. Kraken doesn't sound good.
Yeah, it just doesn't sound like a hockey team.
Just the logo.
Unless you want to do like the Seattle Dragons, like the XFL.
That'd be interesting. Yeah. The rumor is the jerseys are gonna be red and black, which disappoints me so much because I was really hoping maybe they go green, red, and black, sort of like the New Jersey Devil Christmas color alternate jerseys. I love green on jerseys. I love to see it used more. You know.
I think it worked well with an emerald green.
Yeah, exactly. Which fits in with Seattle, right? Mm-hmm.
I kind of liked. I would have liked if they sort of not copied the Seahawks, but sort of had a similar jersey color scheme to the Seahawks, where they use the blue and green and maybe like gray, like
the Color Rush ones or like the blue jerseys.
Like the Color Rush ones,
The green ones.
Yeah, I would have liked to see them do that. We'll see what happens. We have no clue when that's ever going to get revealed.
The next, I'm looking at the next @ here that Noah's going to say. I love the fact that the Twitter @ is based off of your meme tree.
The next question is from @TooGood right now. And he asks, Tree, will you ever do a lolcow bit on the Detroit Pistons? Oh, that's interesting. Actually.
Everybody wants Detroit. Shit. I mean, I've done 3 of them. I mean, there are other teams that need to be taken. I mean, people would bitch that I didn't do the Phoenix Suns before then.
I think
sure.
all I'll say is we need another SENS video once things turn around to sort of reminisce at what happened and just look at how they improved. And eventually, I'm sure we'll do a video when Melnick trades all our prospects again. But that's for when that time comes. The next question comes in from @MyRevMax1. He asks, without all the jokes and everything, do you think the Chargers have a good shot at a playoff run this year? What do you think, Trey?
The Chargers?
Do they have a shot at the playoffs?
I don't know, mainly because quarterback questions.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if Herbert's ready and Tyrod Taylor's solid, but
Plus, you have to deal with the Chiefs. I think the Broncos are the sleeper team in that division.
With Jerry Jeudy being added to the team and they got Bouye, right, the cornerback. Their defense is solid.
They got Bouye.
Their offense is solid, and Drew Lock looks like the quarterback of the future.
I said this in our NFL draft recap episode a few weeks ago that I think Denver is a really big sleeper team. Like, you look at that offense, like, there are so many weapons. You got Lock, you got Jeudy, you got Cortland Sutton, you have Noah Fant, you have now Melvin Gordon. Like,
big
what?
fun. Yeah,
that's just a Philip Lindsay as well, and there's so much in Denver. I think the Chargers.
If Drew Lock is really good,
team. Chargers are going to go like 4-12 or something.
Yeah, if Drew Lock develops, they're good.
Oh, that's going to be a division. The Drew Lock-led Broncos versus the Patrick Mahomes-led Kansas City Chiefs. Those are going to be fun games.
I think that's really what it's going to come down to, those two teams. I think that's
the next one here we got is, I'm going to have trouble pronouncing this. The next one we have is from @Ksan Miguel 3. He asks, when was the moment you thought that you could make a career out of YouTube, or have you had that moment yet?
I would say it was mostly just because if I had like a real career, I don't know if I would have like transferred over to this. It was mostly because I was waiting.
Yeah.
And then I thought it's like, it was around the time when I was working both pretty regularly.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking like, okay, what are the risks of doing this shit full time? Okay, it's unstable. It's unpredictable. You don't know what to expect every day. You deal with bullshit. It could be ripped at you from any time, and you deal with asshole customers. It's the same risk. So it's like, okay, whatever, I'll just leave the restaurant industry. I can always come back to it. In this situation, I don't know because coronavirus, but
yeah. I think it's awesome, actually, if you move to your right a bit, to see your $100,000 plaque. It's beautiful. Good, congratulations once again.
Thanks. I finally ended up getting it like way late. It's like, oh, I can do it. It's like I never got it. Because I never got like the link. It's like, okay, I'll get it.
Well, that must be cool to hang up, you know?
I mean, it's just like a little plaque. Nothing crazy. They'll give you like this random line they send to every single creator, and they think like, oh, look, YouTube cares about me. They really care about me.
I think it's more like you see the fans commenting, you see all these like views and likes and stuff, and that probably is a little bit more satisfactory than the plaque.
I'd rather just put out a good product. I don't give a shit about the sub numbers.
And that's what I respect about you. You just want to make sure you got a good product out there. The next question from @SmugBro. He asked, which National Football League team is the most enraging? And let's just exclude the Steelers because that's a little too biased. Let's get a look.
I'd say the Browns because they have talent. They've been doing, and they do the same thing over and over again. You don't learn that, okay, you're going to move from one thing, which is analytics, realize it's not working the way you want, fire everyone, go in a completely different direction, and realize that isn't working, and then fire them and go in the exact same direction you abandoned a couple years ago.
Or like Michael Scott says, snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. Make a decision already. You know?
Pretty much.
What I think, I'm gonna throw in the Washington Redskins in there because they are also a disaster, but I think they're a little bit less so.
Once they finally got rid of Bruce Allen, it's a little better, but you still have Dan Snyder.
Dan Snyder is the big bad in there.
I think not enraging, but just upsetting as a sports fan would be the Los Angeles Rams. They literally shot themselves in the foot with big contracts with Jared Goff. Now they're kind of screwed now with Jalen Ramsey. The guy's going to have to get paid. They had no first-round picks to supplement the farm system. Well, not farm, but the prospect pool. And I'm not saying they're the most enraging, but they're sort of a lolcow in my opinion, and the fact that they've kind of stepped back a few steps.
Close.
They were close, and now they're really
close.
I put them as
the score of that game, like 9-0 or whatever of that. A 12-3, I think, the Super Bowl with the Patriots. Like, it was close.
I think I can honestly see the Rams getting fourth in the NFC in our division with the 49ers and the Seahawks and Cardinals. I can see the Cardinals with Hopkins being added. I could see them leapfrogging the 3, and I could see the Rams falling the 4. Honestly, it's just been a downfall for them. What about you, Tree?
That's a tough division.
I mean, the thing with the Rams is, it's kind of karma for how they left St. Louis.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. They should never have left.
They locked themselves into that situation. They threw money around. They're, I think, investing over $40 million in dead cap to both Brandon Cooks and Todd Gurley.
It's a disaster there, and it won't get better until the money's cleared up.
But I would say it's sad just because it's not like Todd Gurley did anything bad. It's just a freak show injury that really limited him.
I'll say this as a 49ers fan. I'm not sad that the Rams aren't doing terrible because now it's the Niners and the Seahawks for the next few years, which it's fun. Hopefully that rivalry can come back.
Don't sleep on the Cardinals. Come on.
Cardinals have a strong offense. They don't have a defense.
The defense is not good enough. Exactly. Their defense isn't good enough to beat
yet.
the Seahawks and 49ers twice. That's why I said the 49ers and Seahawks are the next ones up for the next few years while the Cardinals rebuild that defense surrounding
Kingsbury could never build defenses, and that was his downfall at Texas Tech.
So we'll see what happens. But like Isaiah Simmons is the first piece, right? So Chandler Jones is good, Syracuse legend. So we'll see.
For sure. And we have another fan question, obviously, from at TRW9677. He asks, who do you have as a dark horse Super Bowl contender?
Dark horse?
Yeah,
dark horse.
That's interesting. Denver, if all the cards play right, I'd probably say that's tough because you got to think over everything.
Yeah.
Because, most people expect with the stuff that you would expect.
Can you see Philadelphia with a healthy Carson Wentz potentially?
Maybe.
That's no dark horse. Get out of here.
No, that's plenty dark horse, my friend.
My God.
Everyone thinks the Cowboys are probably going to win that division.
No.
By the way,
listen,
he's an Eagles fan. Noah's an Eagles fan. That's why.
The Eagles are taking the division.
I'd say the Bills if Josh Allen develops.
Yes,
true.
That's a solid pick.
They need Josh Allen to develop. He's the only thing stopping them.
That defense is top 10, maybe even top 5. That defense is legit. Oliver is fantastic. And John Brown and now Stephon Diggs have legit offensive weapons. Josh Allen, we just need you to focus on your system and your fit.
Throwing the football.
Don't keep on scrambling. Just throw the football. Obviously, add a couple more pieces to that O-line, and you can have a dynasty there in the AFC. What is it? The West? AFC East. Sorry, not West. East for a while to come. Now, the final question here from friend of the show, Brandon Mackey, big-time fan, friend, and, of course, he's been on the show. Big-time fan as well of UrinatingTree. He asked, of all the National Hockey League teams he's made videos criticizing, which one does he see being the first to turn it around, and that being a team? And which ones does he think are hopeless for the foreseeable future? So basically the recap, which teams of the NHL videos have you done? Do you see doing really rebounding soon? And which do you see continuing to be lolcows and crappy?
The Islanders have been one that's kind of turned it around.
Yes.
managed to get rid of Garth Snow, which I felt was their biggest problem. They have structure, they have coaching, they have a new stadium coming in, so they've recovered. Because they
I
were
would say Washington.
Yeah.
Washington
too, yeah. Because literally a year after you posted that video,
they won the cup.
Them
they won a cup, and then St. Louis. I mean, that was 2 years, but they still won a cup. And then I was expecting, okay, San Jose is going to win a cup now. I was excited, and then they fell to shit.
Hey, here in Ottawa, we're okay with them falling to crap because we now have a 25% chance of first overall because of them. So we'll say thank you to that.
Oh, of course.
That's a worse situation than what Ottawa was in the Duchesne trade. That's what's crazy about it.
Insane. I think who is the team, the videos that you've done, who's the National Hockey League team who's not going to turn around anytime soon? And don't be afraid to say the Ottawa Senators. I understand, even though it's probably wrong.
I'd probably say San Jose because of the contract situation they're in. They're in trouble. Kings.
They just have to wait it out. They're in a situation where no one's gonna buy those contracts, and they have to wait them out.
And not on top of that, just
having issues too in that regard.
The contracts are crazy there in San Jose.
Well, that's what happens when you get desperate for a cup.
Yeah, you get too eager, you push all your chips in, and they rolled on the wrong.
You threw $11.5 million for a guy who hasn't been healthy in 2 years.
Yeah, love Carlson.
And when they did that, they sent
Carlson, but he's not worth $11.5 million.
And they sent an extra second-round pick to Ottawa,
which could have been another.
That was a first-round pick.
Yeah, it could have been another first. They were a game away
from the cup.
Yep, they were one game away, Game 7.
Yep.
That.
They could have been really screwed.
They're two games away technically, but
yeah.
But I mean, when they re-signed Erik Karlsson, they sent a first-round pick to them.
Yeah.
Thank them for that.
I think overall that Karlsson trade in hindsight is looking pretty good for Ottawa.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they had to do it. I didn't like the trade at the time, but I got the logic because what happened with Tavares.
Well, it's not only that; it's just Melnyk couldn't afford to pay Karlsson, couldn't afford to pay Stone, couldn't afford to play Turris, and not Turris at the time, but obviously Hoffman, who wasn't going to be re-signed anyways. But he wasn't able to afford everyone, so they wanted to trade Karlsson because he would get the maximum assets. This is what I think happened. And then once Karlsson was traded, no one wanted to stay. The locker room was broken up because of the Hoffman-Karlsson deal, and overall, just we've moved on. I think in Ottawa we've moved on. Not against Melnyk, but we're looking forward to the future of the organization. But we're being very careful.
If they move, I mean, doesn't matter if Shabbat
I don't think
there for a while.
I don't think the Senators will never move. There's been 2 years of them being bad in attendance. They were a top 5 team for the last 25. Well, they were a top 10 team for the last 25 years. And up until a few years ago, keep in mind, Ottawa is a government town. Okay. And when the government disallowed people in working for the government to buy tickets for, sponsorships or whatever, like to go out for business events, that really hurt the ticket sales. And on top, for corporate, like Toronto, Bear tickets a lot of tickets are sold through corporations. And on top of that, a lot of the government employees here, due to the Phoenix pay issue, which was a huge thing in Canada, a lot of people in Ottawa were not getting paid. And you won't hear that on NBC. You will not hear that on Sportsnet. But half a big chunk of the city wasn't getting paid. So what do you expect? Do you want these fans to go to this hockey games for an owner who doesn't give a damn about them, or put food on their table for their families? I think that probably outweighs it, And unfortunately, as Noah agrees to this, I hope, as Sens fans, it pisses me off so much when the media, especially in the United States, doesn't go through the facts. Ottawa has been great in attendance, but ever since the owner opened his mouth and said some stupid things, and ever since half the city at least wasn't getting paid, you're damn right the attendance numbers will go down because family comes first. And,
I definitely do agree. And I think the main problem with Melnyk, I feel like part of me thinks it's not even money. I feel like he just has a terrible personality. He just clashes with every single top player that Ottawa has. It happened with Alfredson, continued with Spezza all the way down. And
Melnyk's been a clown for a long time.
Yeah. Clown is an understatement. There's a lot of things I love to say about him that I will not be saying on this podcast.
I will say, though,
I believe the NHL should force Melnyk to sell. And I don't say that about any other owner because Melnyk drags down the NHL brand.
I agree. Unfortunately, they can't unless he's like Sterling in LA, where he becomes where he's an underground racist.
But it should be allowed in these situations.
It should be, because he's destroying the franchise. Unfortunately, by law, it's his private property. This and that. He owns it. He's done nothing illegal that from we know. So
what I will say though, I'm a glass half full kind of guy, and I think this is a decent way to end the episode.
Yeah.
I will say that over the past 8 or so months, Melnick hasn't been as bad, like nearly as bad, and especially in his interview that he had with he had an interview somewhere, and he was really praising the team and how excited he is, and he's ready, and all of this, and he hasn't really been in the news except for that one time where Jim Little got fired. But as a Sens fan, you take it.
What I'll say about that is it's all PR. It's good PR. I'm not going to say anything bad about what he's doing for the community. He's been doing great things for the Ottawa community, which he's never really done. So during the pandemic, he's really stepped up to help the local community and the local essential workers. So I have to give kudos where kudos is due. Eugene Melnick has really stepped up during this pandemic. But Noah, before we let Tree plug in his stuff, why don't you tell the fans where they can watch, listen, and follow us?
Yeah, sure. So you guys can follow us on social media. We got Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Sens Talk Podcast as well. We're streaming everywhere. You got Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, SoundCloud, Apple Music, all of it. You can hit that subscribe button, obviously make the red button gray, like the videos, share them. Of course, Tree, we really, really, really appreciate having you on. You've been a great guest, and obviously you've been on Sens Talk a couple times. We really appreciate it. We're a big fan of your stuff, and it's been a great episode. And
on top of that, I think a lot of fans may not know this, but Noah, before this episode, had an hour-long technical difficulty.
Oh my gosh.
Tree, thank you so much for being here for like the last 2.5 hours. This shows how good of a person you are, so I'll let you talk now.
As I said, if you see the stream I do with 5 points, we have technical issues all the damn time. So this is nothing. And plus, what am I doing anyways? We're locked down. Pittsburgh's going into curfew. It technically isn't curfew. I mean, by the time it is right now, it's about 8:30. Yeah. But, I mean, where am I to go?
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Tree. And now, let's plug your channel, plug your Twitter. You've earned it, my friend. You've earned it.
Well, it's pretty basic stuff. I'm at UrinatingTree on Twitter, at UrinatingTree on Facebook. Not Facebook, sorry. I'm not on Facebook. At UrinatingTree on YouTube. I'm urinating_tree on Instagram. I barely use it, but that's my official account. But otherwise, that's about it.
Thank you so much, Tree. Noah, thanks for joining us again, of course, as the co-host. This has been a fun episode. We got a lot of fan interaction, and I'm looking forward to the comments that are going to be on this video on YouTube, and of course all the good comments we're going to get maybe on SoundCloud and stuff. But Tree, it's been an absolute pleasure. You're welcome back on anytime. I look forward to speaking soon. Stay safe, of course, and hopefully we'll meet soon.
Absolutely, dude.
Thank you so much. For Sens Talk, this is Brandon Plant for the Best of 7 podcast. We will see you in the next episode next week for episode number 12. Thank you so much for watching, and go Sens go. Tree, thank you for joining. We'll see you next week.
Peace out.